on this computer. All right. Well, Bizzy, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAAT Chat podcast.
Oh my God. Well, thanks for having me. This is such a pleasure to meet you.
That's so fun. You're so full of energy. I love it. We were just saying, I was like, oh my gosh, we would have had so much fun getting loaded together.
Oh my God.
But only for a little while, because I would always turn into a big old jerk. So maybe it's better that we're sober.
Oh, I can tell you it's definitely better because you'd be like, she's scary because I'm really tall and, I'm 5'9". Yeah, I'm 5'9".
Okay.
So I was a blackout drinker and sometimes I also fell. So it wasn't always the prettiest sight to watch a girl.
God. Did you ever wake up of course you woke up with a bunch of bruises the next day, right?
I've been hospitalized for a hangover. Yes, I have.
Wow. Ooh, that's a good one. You'll have to tell me that story.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we got connected through a friend and you have a podcast as well. And what's it called? Are you going to sing it for me?
Do you want me to sing it? I'll sing it. So it's called Bizzy Living Sober.
Okay.
Bizzy Living Sober, Bizzy Living Sober, Bizzy Living Sober.
I love it. It's so funny. I was like, okay, I'll leave the singing to you. I don't want to lose listeners here. So fun. Oh my gosh. So before we get too crazy, because I was having so much fun talking to you before we started, I would love to hear your story. I don't know your story.
Okay.
Give us, if you could cry a little bit, that'd be amazing.
We were talking about like how I could get emotional, And it is interesting because I'm a couple days prior to an anniversary. And
so exciting.
It's 14 years on the 14th, which is kind of like a golden anniversary, people are saying, right? So it's like I finally have my year, the day and the year matching up. And I don't know, like if you feel this way, but whenever there's an anniversary on its way, you tend to like ponder what it used to be like. And different emotions come up because it's kind of emotional, right? So I've been thinking a lot about what it was like 14 years ago today.
What was it like?
It was chaotic. It was dramatic. It was sad. It was dark. I don't think anybody comes into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous going, wow, that was awesome. I'm gonna get some help here. It was quite the contrary. I was divorced at that point, and I had been divorced for about 2 years. And I had been running hard for a long time, and I had 3 small children. And so I'm just going to back up and give you just a little bio, my little resume of what it was like drinking. So maybe it'll get me a job one day. So I started drinking at 13. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, home of Anheuser-Busch. And I grew up in an upper class family. Okay. So I grew up with all that stuff you're supposed to have on the outside. I grew up in a very affluent neighborhood. Everybody had 2 cars, maybe more. I had a very large house, but it was crazy. It was really, really, really crazy. And both of my grandmothers were alcoholic. One was Irish Catholic and one was Jewish. Who would have ever thought? So, I knew the word alcoholic, but with that came a lot of shame, right? Because the way that my family talked about their mothers and their mother-in-laws, it was always like, oh my gosh, they're an alcoholic, alcoholic. But that was a statement, but there was no like, oh, maybe we should get them help. Maybe we should do something different. It was like, okay, they're an alcoholic, but we're still going to serve them drinks. And so alcoholic was a very shame-based thing for me. And I grew up with a family that liked to socialize. My parents loved to have parties. So I would see people with their drinks and they had this pretty glass and they'd have a pretty dress on and they'd be at a cocktail party and it just looked so pretty. It looks so pretty. I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like fun. I can't wait till I'm a grown up. I can't wait. It's going to be so fun. I can wear a pretty dress and drink out of a pretty glass. And my parents always seemed to be having so much fun until they weren't, right? And so at 13, I started drinking like every other 13-year-old, right? I mean, that's what we start doing.
Wow.
And I don't remember there. I hear a lot of people say that they remember their first drunk. I do not. All I can tell you was that it was Mecca. So for me, it was like, hallelujah. I found the answer to all of my problems. My parents had a very tumultuous relationship and had a very tumultuous divorce. And it was like War of the Roses. Now I'm dating myself. Now that was Michael Douglas. Do you remember that movie? A long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was my parents, but they didn't have the ending of killing themselves or each other. So, but it was very traumatic. And the drinking was like the perfect answer, right? So I didn't have to have any feelings because when you drink, right, you don't have any feelings.
Oh, wow.
So at 13, when I started drinking, I wasn't drinking every day, but every time that like my parents went out for dinner, I'd have a party and we'd all get drunk and we were all be riding bikes. We rode bikes to each other's houses and got drunk. And to think about that today, I mean, you'd be mortified to think that we did that, but that's what we did as kids. Like all my friends, we all did the same things. We all showed up at each other's houses. All of our parents were out doing the same partying as grown-ups. And us kids would go to whatever house was empty and we'd drink. And, you know, my life was kind of like, that was my life. And at 18, I got a DUI. I got out of the car with one high heel on and one high heel off. And I hit a brand new Porsche. The license plates weren't even on the car yet. I got taken to jail and I was screaming and yelling like, don't you know who I am? I mean, again, I was a spoiled brat and privileged and just kind of a jerk, just to be, I'll keep it PG. So I was a jerk. And my dad tried to take me to rehab and he got on he told me he was taking me to breakfast and he got me in the highway and I'm like, why are we getting on the freeway to go to breakfast? Like, this isn't the way to go to breakfast. And he's like, well, I'm actually taking you to rehab. Well, I'm a master manipulator. So I called my mother. Now they were both remarried to different people. My mom was pregnant with her new child with her new husband. And I call her and I'm like, I'm in jail, like I'm in rehab. And she's like, all right, go to the bathroom. I'm going to be waiting on the other side, climb out the window and you can get out. Like, that's my life. So I did that. I climbed out of the window, go to the bathroom, say to the people at the intake at rehab, I'm going to go to the bathroom now. And I climb out the window and shimmy out. Okay. And it was never talked of again. Right. So that was a blip. And then I graduated from high school. That was, there was lots of drama, but I don't want to get into it. So then I ended up moving in the middle of my senior year of high school to Philadelphia. And again, I had no friends. I just had my sister, but my sister and I I just partied with her. We drank, we smoked a little weed. That was our thing, right? That's what we did. And I ended up getting into an all women's college it was kind of easy. It's now part of GW University. So I'm now can say I'm a graduate of GW. And so I graduated from college and again, no real repercussions. So, and then I've always wanted to be the next Barbara Walters since I was a little girl. And growing up, I don't know if you remember, like she would be on these specials and everybody would be like tuned in because
Whitney Houston.
Oh yeah, like any celebrity, right? She'd be like, and I would be so like, don't anybody talk. I'm watching this. It's so important. So I graduated with a degree in communications. So when I graduated from college, I got a job working at the local CBS affiliate in Philadelphia.
Wow,
and
cool.
So I worked there, but because of my drinking, loose lips sink ships. So I started, I'd have a couple cocktails and I'd gossip about this anchor and that anchor. And, they don't really like that, as you can imagine. And so I lost that job. But in the interim, I had met, my husband, who was perfect, right? We met at a bar. He was great, perfect. We met at the bar. And I'm like, let's go play house. So I got married and I had 3 kids very quickly. I was young. I mean, one was born in 96, one was born in 97, and one was born in 99. Wow. And I have these 3 little babies and, I'm doing this life thing. And every time I got pregnant, I'd stop drinking though. It was the weirdest thing. Like when I got pregnant with Kent, my oldest, I remember I was with one of my closest friends who's actually now passed away, but I was with her. We got the test, and I remember I was like smoking a cigarette. I'd finished like 2 bottles of wine the night before, and I'm like smoking a cigarette in the morning, watching the pregnancy test, and it's like, oh, you're pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I put it down for those 9 months. But I remember like the minute I gave birth, I'd look at my ex-husband, I'd be like, okay, get me a bottle of champagne and get me a pack of smokes. And I'm gonna go smoke you remember you could still smoke, like you could hide at least in the stairwell in the 90s in the hospital. So I did that. I would smoke cigarettes, and I nursed barely at all for my kids because I just wanted it to be about, now I did my work. Like I was the vessel, you're all healthy. Now I get to go to destroy my body again. Bye-bye. So I did that. And so I had these 3 babies. My marriage is falling apart. My ex-husband and I are drinking a lot. He hides his though, right? So he hides it underneath the lip of the couch. I'm like, you're such a loser. Who hides it? Come on, dude. Like if you're going to party big. Don't hide it underneath there like I don't see it. And he tried to get sober at that point, and I remember saying to him, like, okay, come on, are you real? And he'd be like, are you going to go to a meeting with me? I'd be like, no, are you such a loser? Like, who quits drinking? Whatever. No, I'm not. You have a problem, not me. And I have to throw in here, I have 2 siblings that were sober at this time. And I have a sister who was sober for 5 years and a brother that was sober for 10.
Oh, wow.
So I knew what AA was. I knew what the big book was. I knew what all these things were. But to me, I knew what they were, but I didn't know what they were. You know what I mean? What they represented was fearful. It was like the whole thing, like, oh my God, you guys are losers. They'd be sitting in the corner, they'd be all happy, chain smoking cigarettes, but in the funkiest outfits and talking about the big book. And I'm like, you guys are some weirdos. Okay. You're going to really be at my party and not drink? Come on, you guys, come drink. And they were like, no, we're not drinking. So I knew what AA was. I knew all that stuff. So anyway, fast forward, I get divorced from my husband, and I compare my divorce to like dropping a grenade in my living room and shrapnel hit everyone. Because everybody was sad, everybody, and there again, those emotions, like I just broke everybody's heart in my house, my kids, my ex-husband, even though I needed to divorce him, I loved him still. So it was like the whole thing was just so painful. So my drinking, it's like, you're on a boat. I took that throttle and just went boom. Yeah. And I just was like, ready, let's go. And I remember actually being at a bar with a bunch of ladies and somebody looking at me going, God, you're handling this divorce so well. And I'd be like, yeah, get me another dirty straight up, please. Lots of dirty straight up martini. And it was crazy. And so the end of my drinking was not that exciting. I'd bought a house. I had been renting a house for 2 years when I got divorced, and I partied like it was 1999, even though I had these 3 little kids, and I'm out with the girls, and I'm out doing all this stuff. And I have 3 little kids, and I remember them coming home, and I'd be like, go play in traffic. And I'm not kidding, because I have a hangover, right? And I had a hangover. Hangovers to kill a bear. I've been to the hospital for a hangover. My sister was like, what did you drink the night before? I'm like, what didn't I drink? It was like, dirty martini, couple bottles of wine, sex on the beach, Cosmopolitan, whiskey, whatever it was. Let me get blackout, because I was a blackout drinker from the very, very, very get-go. So to finish it up, so then at the very end, my sister gets married. As I mentioned, she was sober. She was marrying a guy who was also sober. A month before my sister was getting married, my grandmother had passed away, and out of 13 grandchildren, I was asked to give the eulogy, and I got so drunk in the kitchen the night before, like I sprained my ankle. I got to the pulpit the next day in this church, this lovely church, and I swear if somebody brought a match to me, I would have blown up. I mean, like I was one of those people that I bathed in Chanel, but you could still smell it. You know what I mean? Like, what'd you do? I remember people looking at me at church going, ooh, what'd you do last night? And I'm like, I swear I put a ton of perfume on and I took a shower. What the hell is going on? But anyway, so at the very end, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, I remember going to church and just being like, God, please, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And I'd do it again. And I'd do it again. I'd say to myself, I can't do this again. But I had no power, right? I had no power whatsoever. And the thought of actually, I don't know, just letting go didn't happen until it did. So to the very end, I've been drinking a lot. I kept liquor above my stove, and I want to mix it with my coffee or my orange juice. And I would be shaky, in the morning, and I'd be like, and again, I have 3 small kids. So I'm like, how am I going to manage this? And, so my sister gets married to this gentleman, and, half the wedding party's sober, cause he's sober a long time, like decades. And, and by the way, I am what did she say I am? I'm like a professional image person. Like I'm all about the outsides, right? Like I professionally can look as good as you want me to look. I've got the best dress, the best shoes, the best handbag. But on the inside, I'm a total mess. I'm a total mess. And, so I go to this wedding. I had a dress made for me. I had these shoes, and I remembered a couple parts of the wedding. I didn't remember that much. Somebody was like, are these your shoes? And I'm like, no, those aren't fancy enough. So it was all about the image. It was all about playing the part. Like I had this checklist that I thought that if you got all these things on the material world, right? I had the right husband with the right last name. I did that, check. I had the right house, check. My kids went to the right private schools, check. I had all that stuff, but I was totally dark on the inside. And I like to explain the way I felt on the inside. If you go into an old church and you see a stained glass window, right? And like, especially in downtown Philadelphia, these churches are really old, right? And there's so much soot on them, but you can see that underneath that soot, it's something really beautiful. I was walking around with all that soot because I had all these feelings I could never deal with. If I dealt with them, I'd be Humpty Dumpty. I'd never be able to be put back together again. So I go to the wedding. The next day, my mother has this lovely after brunch for all the guests. And I'm standing there, of course, with probably a Bloody Mary and a mimosa, because why not? In a beautiful dress with a beautiful glass. And this gentleman who was good looking came up to me and he goes, do you know you're an alcoholic? And I was like, oh, okay. Now I felt so bad about myself at that point. It wasn't like my reaction was like, who are you to tell me that? I really, I felt so like shit already about myself. So it was like, oh, okay. I kind of listened to him. I've never seen that guy again, which is kind of weird. And a couple hours later, I got in the car to go to the beach, and I was by myself and I was alone. And the alcoholic brain that my brain works, in my head, I played this tape, right? Like, am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic? Am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic? I knew I was an alcoholic. I didn't know how it comes from the family tree. I didn't understand that because both my grandmothers had it, maybe I had a better chance than not of having this. So I get to the beach and somebody offers me a drink. And I said, no, I'm not going to have a drink. Because to me, an alcoholic gets drunk every day, right? Like they get pretty much drunk every day. They maybe live in a box. They maybe live under the freeway. They don't have 2 cars in the drive. Even though my grandmothers were, my family had said my grandmothers were like this. They never got sober. So, so that's what the alcoholic was. Like, right? The vagrant, the person that you don't want, the dregs of society. So I don't have a drink that night. So see, I'm not an alcoholic. I didn't have a drink last night. I didn't have a drink. But the next day at 4:00, which is 5:00 somewhere in the world, somebody says to me, do you want a drink? And I said, sure. And I drank till about 3:00 in the morning. And I was sitting on the end of the dock of the bay. And I had a bottle of wine, a pack of smokes, and a cell phone. And I was all alone. And I got up the next day and I went for a run. And those people who know me know that I do not run unless someone's chasing me. So that's kind of weird that I even went on a run, to be honest. So I went on a run on the beach in August in New Jersey. It's hot as you know what. And I fall to my knees and I say, God, please help me. And that was the last time I've had a drink. And that was August 14th, 2006. And ever since then, my life has been absolutely unbelievable. Going into my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous was the scariest thing I've ever done. Now, but mind you, I've been married, I've bought cars, I've had babies, I've been to prison because of the DUI, but never, not prison, but went to jail, whatever, for a night. But still, that was way scarier walking into that church basement because I was like, oh my God, what? That's the last thing you want to be, right? Like the last thing in the world. Like you might make a wrong turn into a shopping center, but you don't make a wrong turn into AA. I'm like, oh my God. And luckily, that brother-in-law who my sister was marrying said, you're going to call this woman and she's going to help you. And I called her, and for some reason, like I followed her suggestion, and she was totally different. She had gone to the University of Pennsylvania. You know, she was very smart. Her drug of choice was heroin. My drug of choice was alcohol. But she was happily married and had 3 kids and was managing life, and she was happy. And that was something I wanted, right? I wanted that. So I remember I met with her in the very beginning, and she said, you have to call me every day, and you have to go to a meeting every day. And I'm like, don't you get it? I'm busy. What are you talking about? I cannot do that. She goes, well, if you want what I have, you're going to have to do that. And so I did it. And I called her every day. I went to a meeting every day, more than every day. She said, don't get into a relationship. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I can't have a boyfriend? I can't have sex? Are you kidding me? For a whole year? And she's like, just take care of yourself. And I was like, okay. I just did it. And now looking back in hindsight, 14 years later, I really did take that time to figure out who I was. I when I was drinking, my favorite color was green. You know what? My favorite color is actually orange. I planted my tree. I watered it. I nurtured it. I gave it food. I rubbed, you know what I mean? I took care of it. So now I can weather any storm, right? I'm like a palm tree sitting outside. Like all these hurricanes come and they sway this way and they sway that way, but they still stand. And so life since then has not been easy. Okay. I've dated different people. I have had major financial issues. It hasn't always been easy, right? But the one thing that I've done correctly this entire time is that I always stay connected to somebody in AA. I talk to God a lot. Luckily I do have that spiritual connection because I was raised Catholic. So I've always had a sense of God, even though it was really scary growing up, like seeing God on that cross with the thorns around his head and the nails in his hand. Like that was really scary. So what I've come to now, like something spiritual is totally different. And the longer I stay sober, the easier the bumps get and the less fear I have.
Is awesome. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so inspiring. I mean, you and I have so many parallels. And it's so funny because, maybe the circumstances are different, but the feelings are all the same at the end of the day, and it's like, it sounds like you had a lot of trauma and a lot of, heartache and not a lot of coping skills. And, but it's amazing that, when we hit bottom, the surrender prayer, when you said you hit your knees and was like, oh God, please help me. I feel like that is the surrender prayer for the alcoholic. Um, and I love that I have so many questions. So you said, I want to go back a little bit I think it's important to talk about the darkness a little bit. And I feel there's a lot of talk lately about like all this mom guilt, right? There's all this mom guilt associated with women who drink. I don't know that men have this same parenting type of guilt that moms do. But man, I was thinking you had 3 little kids and, having the hangovers. How did you manage the kids when you were hungover? I mean, that must have been a really hard
So the
time.
one thing that I might not have said this. I had 50-50 joint custody. So,
Oh, okay.
so when they would go with him would be, well, for one, when they'd leave, you know, that Wednesday, because
Like
we
game
did this,
on.
yeah, it was like game on, and not, but every time they'd left, it's like so Henry was 6 when I got sober. So at 4 years old, I'm divorced, and your 4-year-old, you're saying bye to your 4-year-old.
Oh,
So he's going to leave for half the week. And I'm like, oh my God, like that pain was so debilitating. Like it was, I was like, get me a drink. What am I going to do? Like, I am going to be a mess, a puddle on the floor if I do not get a drink in me. Cause it was just to watch the three of them. I mean, and Hadley was 6 and Kent was 8. Like they're little kids. That's babies. So,
yeah.
you know, those 2 years, every time they'd leave, I'd be like, okay, a part of me just died, you know? And my ex-husband got into a relationship really early with
Ew,
someone
that had
else.
to
And
hurt.
it was so painful. It was crazy. And, you know, one of the things I didn't mention is like so I had already planned, he was getting remarried. I got sober August 14th. He was getting remarried on Labor Day. I already had booked tickets to come to Napa. My friend who lives in Walnut Creek, I was
Oh,
coming out
wow.
to see her because I was like, oh, while he's getting married, I'm going to go get shit-faced, because all these feelings that are coming up about him were like, oh my God, I have to go. I've got to make a plan to go out there so I'm not here. And I ended up getting sober. And that friend is still one of my closest friends to this day. And I called her and I said, I quit drinking. And she's like, I mean, she was so excited for me. And I went to a
She's
meeting in
like, oh my
Gilroy,
God.
you know, Gilroy,
Oh my
California.
God. That's very far from Walnut Creek.
Well, we were on our way to Napa. So I don't even know why we were in Gilroy, but I went to a meeting. She took me to a meeting there. I have no idea why, but I went to a meeting there and I was the only person who spoke English. And I remember sitting outside and she's like, you have to go, Bizzy. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. But she like made sure I got to a meeting every day while I was there. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
but the feelings of being a mom, you know, the play groups back then when my kids were little and you'd have these play groups, you know, all of the moms that I'd have over, we all drank. That's
Oh,
what we
drinking
did.
wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Not
wine,
only
the
drinking
mommy wine
wine,
culture.
the mommy wine culture. I'd have vodka, because then you're on a diet, right? So then you drink the vodka because it's less fattening. So the frozen vodka I'd keep in the freezer, lemon flavored vodka, and we'd mix it with water. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
During playgroup, you know?
Yeah.
And with that mommy thing, I just want to throw something in because it's interesting. Because now that my kids, I've been sober, so my son, so through pretty much all of high school. I mean, Kent, my oldest, was 10 when I got sober, and now he's 24. And I remember when he went to college, it was interesting. So he goes to college and he's in a fraternity, and he's like, Mom, do you know what they do? And I said, what? He said they tie yellow balloons on the moms' backs, because now us moms, we look pretty good, right? We look pretty good. We
Oh,
could.
shoot. So they're
So
like, don't be picking up on the moms.
exactly. But the moms are getting just as housed, you know, they say housed, getting just as
Really?
wasted as the kids, right? So the
Okay.
moms are there going toe to toe with the kids. They don't know that it's a mom. And they're like, my mom's doing this. And it was interesting because all of his friends would say to him, like, you're so lucky. Your mom doesn't do this. But I'm going to
Oh,
tell
the
you,
moms are embarrassing the kids.
totally. Would you ever think that?
My parents were so straight. I was the only, but wow, that's amazing. It's like your kids want you to be, your kids want you to be good, huh? Do your kids remember you drinking at all?
I mean, I think they say that they do, but I don't know if they really do. I mean,
Because
because again,
if you're drinking on play dates, so you're drinking in front of your kids.
but so are the other moms acting wacky. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I was sitting there
Oh,
by
no, no,
myself.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not just you, but
No, no, like they didn't know, like I had a roadie in the car as I'm driving the Suburban, you know, with the kids in the back in their car seats, and we're jamming out to Prince Purple Rain. And they're like, okay, mom's acting a little weird, but we
yeah,
don't know, you know, they didn't know.
she's a fun mom.
Exactly.
You were the fun mom. Oh my God. That's crazy. Okay. So you get sober, and I'm sure your brother and sister were like, finally.
They were, but unfortunately they both relapsed and they aren't sober today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I don't know why I'm surprised. They say that every day that an alcoholic is sober that's when you should be surprised.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about that? Does that make you sad, or are they okay?
I've learned a lot through all of my, so I seek a therapist myself. I see a
Okay.
therapist once a week. I'm a
Nice.
certified recovery specialist, which is what led me to doing Bizzy Living Sober.
Right.
But, I've realized that all I can do is pray for them. My ex-husband, and not to go into any of their stuff, but my ex-husband was still drinking. And when I was sober. And so my kids would go to his house and we had 50-50 joint custody. And he would fall, and it was
Mm.
really a traumatic time for my kids. So I I remember talking to my sponsor about it all the time and being like, what am I going to do? What can I do? Like, how can I get my kids away from him? Da, 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 like all the drama that went along with it. And she'd say, you have to pray for him. So at the end of each meeting, which is the last thing you want to hear, like, I want
I
to pray
know.
for
I
him,
know.
that son of a bitch. Like, I don't want to pray for him. But at the end of the meeting, they'd say, all right, we're going to, they close every meeting, a lot of meetings at least, with let's have a moment of silence for the still sick and suffering in and outside of these rooms. And I would always think of him.
Mm.
So when I had 7 years of recovery, my ex-husband, so it was hard. That was very hard because that was like, now my babies are seeing this. So my kids saw a house that was sober and a house that had somebody drinking in it. And when Kent was a junior in high school, I caught him smoking weed. And, moms were like, oh my God, alert the press. He's doing this. Oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I called my ex-husband. I said, you need to come over. We need to talk about it. And I knew that he was red in his face. And I knew, but I can't smell. I have no sense of smell. So I can't smell him. So I couldn't smell him. But he looked red, but he didn't look any different than he normally does. And so when we were done talking about my son, he gets into the car and he's like, all right, I'm going to go pay a parking ticket. I'm like, all right, see you later. 20 minutes later, my phone rings. I'm like, hello? And he's like, Liz? He's the only person who calls me Liz. Liz, you need to come pick me up. I'm at the police station. And they told me that if I get back in the car, they're going to arrest me for a DUI. And so, can you come pick me up? And so
Wow.
I went and I picked him up. And the police officer who I knew, because again, in my town, I know everybody in my town. And he also, I know everybody. They wanted me to be like a police officer in my town, like one of the civilian police officers. Like I know everybody. And so he looks at my ex-husband and he says, you get in the car. To me, I need to talk to you. And I went up and I said, yes. And he goes, he's an alcoholic. And I said, I did. And he goes, if he gets back in that car in the next 24 hours, I will arrest him from DUI. And I said, okay. So my ex gets in my car and I said, so now what are you gonna do? And he's like, I don't know. I said, well, here are your options. You ready? And he's like, okay. I said, either A, you go to treatment, or B, you don't see your kids anymore. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And he goes, I need to think about it. I'm like, really? Think about it while you're packing your bag. So I
Yeah.
luckily knew some people at a treatment facility up in Pennsylvania. I called them. I got him a bed. I got him a couple cartons of smokes, and there he went to rehab. And I brought my kids there every single solitary weekend to do the family, because I really believe it's a family disease. So everybody's got to know about it. So I did that. And I think he's been sober ever since. He doesn't talk to me anymore. So he
He
never
doesn't.
did. Yeah,
Your kids are grown now anyway, so it's not like you're co-parenting with him, really.
no, he didn't want to. Once they turned 18, even if it was in like December or November, it was like, okay, I'm done talking to you about that kid. I'm like, okay, I got to go figure it out myself, which I did. I mean, luckily,
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was interesting you talked about going through that process of, am I an alcoholic? And I remember my own process it took me 2 years wrestling with that question. Were you able to come to that conclusion very quickly, or how did you come to that conclusion that you were in fact an alcoholic?
Well, I knew kind of the fact that I was a blackout drinker. I think I mentioned earlier that I fell a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And and my speech would be impaired when I was drinking, right? So
Yes.
then I would be like, let me see let me take it around the world. And I had friends that it's scared, right? They would be like, they'd go out with me because I'm standing there in my pretty cocktail dress. And I'm like, and
They're like,
they're
what
like,
language are you speaking?
what's happened to you? Are you possessed? Did you just have a seizure? What's going on with you? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's just me being drunk. So I knew I had a problem. And when I did do that little teeny test of those 2 days, right? Like, so I went down and I didn't drink and I'm like, see, I'm not an alcoholic. But then the next day it took me to where it always took me to, which was sitting on the end of the dock of the bay by myself with a pack of smokes and a bottle and a cell phone. And there I am.
Yeah, you talked about the inability to choose. Like you
No.
can't not do it. Man, I remember those days. That was such a horrible, scary feeling.
Oh, I mean, it was like if I picked up a drink, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I swore. And I know there's a lot of people who said that they tried to stop, like, and they tried to manage. I didn't really try, to be honest, to manage because that's like impossible. Like, how can you even
That's
have
no
fun?
fun anyway, let me
No
tell you.
fun. Exactly.
Mm-mm.
Right. Like, I couldn't do that. So I remember walking into this bar that was in my hometown. And I remember walking in there going, I'm going to have one dirty martini. And waking up the next day going, I did it again. And
Oh my
again, I
God,
was a
that's the
blackout
worst.
drinker. And so it's like, is the car there? Are the mirrors on it? Is everything where it's supposed to be? You know, all that stuff.
Yeah, so scary. Man, I remember those days when I woke up and I was like, oh my God, how did I get here? I remember walking outside and I had this cute little Ford Ranger and it had weeds sticking out of it from the hood and the quarter, the panel. There was like weeds sticking up and everything that had been in my purse was on the floor and everything that was in it was in the glove box and everything that was in the glove box was on the floor. It's like, what happened? I remember you ever have to call your friends and ask them what happened the night before?
Oh my God. I did it all the time. And then
Oh,
I'd feel guilt. And this was the other
yeah,
thing. I always felt guilty.
so
The
guilty.
worst is waking up going, who's that?
I know.
Dude,
Oh my God, that's not my ceiling.
and who is that dude? He's not even that cute. What was I thinking? Oh my God.
So
I
I
mean,
gotta
that,
gnaw your arm off to get
oh
out
my
of the.
God. It's like, like thinking of that
That's so.
still today gives me chills. Like, I can't believe, but that was the only, like, I didn't think there was another way to live where you could actually have fun. Like, I thought that
Yeah.
this was going to be like, this is it. Like, I'm done. My life is boring. I'm sitting in church basements. Like, I might as well be a nun. And
I
my
know.
life is like, I can't be social.
Yeah.
And it's quite the contrary. But
It's so the opposite. Yeah. I remember having that same feeling like, oh, my life is over. Like, I'm never going to have any fun ever again. I was so wrong. And it's so important for people that are new to realize that there is a lot of fun to be had. All of a sudden you have all this free time, right? Because if you spend your evenings and weekends drinking and your mornings being hungover, and that's not the issue anymore, suddenly you have all this free time to go do all kinds of fun things and you'll remember it all and you won't be spending as much money, theoretically.
well, and in fact, I feel like now there isn't even enough time in the day.
Oh my God, I know. Well, it's so funny that your nickname is Busy. I can see why you're busy. I was like, oh my God, me and her would have had so much fun. Um, Especially if you live closer. I'd be
I
like, what's up, Busy? Let's go play. Let's go play. Oh my God. So, okay, so you get sober and you submit to the what do looking back, why did you start drinking? Was it just for fun or was there something compelling you to drink and then it turned into an addiction of sorts?
well, I think once you're a pickle, you can't become a cucumber again. That's
Right,
number
right.
one. And
Yeah.
number
You
two,
crossed the line somewhere.
and I think that I don't know if there was ever like, because I literally, the minute that my friend said, do you want to drink? It
At
was like,
13.
yes, at 13. Because
Yeah.
again, when you're growing up and you see mommy and daddy doing this, that's
Yeah.
normal, right? Because
Yeah.
those are the people that are like your idols, kind of like. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, they're so cool. They look so pretty. My
Mm-hmm.
mommy looks so pretty in her pretty dress, and she's got that pretty glass. And so you always want to be a grown up. Like, you talk to kids all the time, and they're like, I can't wait till I'm a grown up and I can do this,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that minute that it happened, and it was such a part of my culture growing up, like, it's a part of our society, and it's
It
not just in
is. Yeah.
America, it's all over the world. So being able to do that was like the rite of passage. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom's house is like a liquor store. I mean, she's got like the best wines you would ever, and always growing up, she'd be like, okay, so what kind of wine do you want? And I buy a case of that. Okay, I got you that wine. It's like, and it was okay because that's what everybody did.
Right. Why do you think you crossed the line?
I think because genetically I'm predisposed to this. I
Yeah.
think genetically I think that I might have passed my parents, and it came to me, and it's mental. I mean, if you're looking at insurance plans, if you're dealing with addiction, it falls underneath the mental health, right? So
Mental health. Yeah.
and I could never, the processing, I mean, I'm sensitive. I walked around, but I was so fearful to have a feeling that
Mm.
you walk around with four dicks, your heart's behind four dicks. Like, it's not, nobody's getting through there. Right. And a way
Did you
to
say
really,
four dicks?
Fort Dix, like one of that place where
I
they
was
keep
like,
the
what the
money.
hell?
I think it's in
Okay,
Colorado.
sorry. I thought you said poor dicks.
Okay.
Okay.
Not four dicks. No.
Not penises.
No.
Okay, got it.
No, I wasn't
I was
surrounded by
like, what?
penises, but I was surrounded by these big, I protected
Okay.
myself
You
and
had the
not
wall.
wanting to have the feelings, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
feelings were daunting. I didn't even know what a feeling was. When I got sober, when my therapist said to me, how do you feel? I'm like, cold or hot? Do you want me to turn up the air conditioner or want me to turn on the heat? Like, that was my way. I
Yeah.
didn't grow up with like, do you feel depressed? Are you okay? Do you have some anxiety?
Well, look at that. You had, so you're like, just no coping skills, no way
None.
to manage your feelings. Yeah. I
No
mean,
way to manage. Yeah.
that's pretty common when it comes to people with addiction, is not a lot of coping skills.
Well, you don't go to school and they teach you like, okay, if you feel this way, maybe ask for some help. Oh no, you never ask for help. I remember when my son was little and he has ADHD. So, and I never medicated him because of the addiction in our family, right? So it was like the pills and all that stuff from my family wasn't going to work, even though he was, the fact that when he graduated from high school, I felt like I had ran a marathon. I was like, thank you, God, Jesus, he graduated from high school. Oh my God. And now
Right.
he's very uber successful and he works on Capitol Hill.
That's
But
so
getting him
amazing.
there was really hard.
Yeah.
And, I remember when they offered him, some special things at school, right? They're like, well, but you have an IEP, so you can,
Right.
that's what they call it in Pennsylvania. And
Yeah.
so you could get extra help.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't want that help. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's like winning the lottery. How lucky are you? Like, if you get to have a pass that lets you sit in the front of the classroom, if you get that googly feeling that you don't want to sit there anymore because you got you got to move,
Yeah.
right? And instead of wearing the dunce cap the kids did in our generation, they'd be like, oh, here, go to the bathroom. So he could get up and walk. So learning coping skills, I had
Right.
none.
None. I know. Yeah, me either. Yeah. My God forbid my mother ever listen to this, but her way of managing my feelings was to get angry and shut me down. And so I just learned to stuff it, but but I was the rebellious child. I have an older sister who was the compliant child, but I was the rebellious child, and I could only stuff it for so long before it would erupt. And when I drank, that's what happened. I erupted. I had two alter egos. It was either Wimpy Wendy or Badass Betsy, because I was either fighting or crying. All my feelings came out when I drank. You didn't when you drank, you didn't like get emotional?
I was just like, I
Are you just all
wanted to,
happy and slurry?
I was happy and slurry, and I had a wooden leg. And, you know, again, I wasn't raised with having, like, I remember just, and I know my mother will never listen to this, so I'm going to say this. So, like, when I got my period, right? Like, that's a big deal for a woman, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're like,
It's a
my
rite of
entire,
passage.
right? You're like, okay, and not only that, but you become, I mean, I have a daughter, so I know, you know, it comes a little emotional, let's just say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mother hands me a book. Here you go, period. And I'm like, okay. Okay.
Okay.
We're not going to really talk about it. I just get a book to read called Period. And,
There you go. Yeah.
yeah.
Let's not talk about
And
that.
that's
Let's
not,
just
that's
sweep
not,
that shit under the rug.
and so that's how I learned. So
Yeah.
like having those emotions and feeling the volatility that I have friends that are like that would cry and get all emotional. But I was just like I was like, just give me more, like, I wanted to go toe to toe with any guy. I'm like, you want to party? I can party just as hard as you
Oh
can.
my
I mean, it was
God. Yeah.
crazy.
You build up a tolerance. I remember I used to be able to, my badge of honor was I could drink any guy twice my size under the table because I had such a tolerance. I'm only like 5'3".
Oh my gosh, you're so little and
I,
cute. Like,
oh, yeah, well, some guys like, I could put you in my pocket.
but it was
So,
at the end when I couldn't go. I couldn't, some nights you'd have one or two and already be at that blackout,
a
right?
blackout. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be one or two and it wouldn't take, like, some nights you could drink like to you're like 3 a.m. And I mean, I remember like times that I couldn't get drunk and it would be like, oh
Yeah.
my God,
Girl,
I
what's
got to
going
keep
on?
going, right?
Yeah. It's so bizarre.
And it was, you couldn't tell, right? It was like, why is it sometimes I can only have one and sometimes I can have 47? Like, I
Right.
don't, you know, there was no,
No rhyme or reason.
no. So that's where the sip thing, I really bought that when they said that it's like literally when the alcohol touches your lips, you change. It doesn't matter about, because I remember when I first came into the program and they'd be like, well, it's out there doing push-ups. And I'd be like, really? There's
So
like a butter.
weird. It's always
Was it
struck
weird?
me. Didn't that strike you as weird when people sort of like personify the disease? Oh, your alcoholism wants you dead. And I was like, who the fuck is my alcoholism?
Exactly. Like you
Talking
give it a
about.
name. It's like you give it a
Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
Like your
you're
alter ego. Like Wendy, like you were saying.
my
Like
wimpy
Wendy's out
Wendy.
there. Wendy's out there doing push-ups and getting ready to beat you up. And I'd be
That's
like,
probably badass Betsy. Oh my God. That's so funny. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so but I hate to focus on the like how shitty we were when we were drinking, but so you get sober, you get a sponsor, and you just did everything she told you to do. Did you go through all 12 steps like within a year, or how did that
well,
work
that's
out for
funny
you?
that you asked me that. So I remember looking at the steps, right? So I look at the steps and I'm like, damn, I'm going to finally graduate something summa cum laude. Yes, baby, I got this one. I got this one. And I remember doing the steps the first year. And to me, and for those people that can relate, do you know what Cliff Notes are?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I did Cliff Notes version. Okay. It was like, couldn't go too deep. I'm like, all right, I'll go to there and I'll stop. But the longer I stayed, it's like, and now I'm using another, a term, like I'm peeling back the onion.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer I stay sober, the more
The deeper you go.
the deeper you go. So that first year I did it and I just did it, you just went through the motions.
Mm-hmm. You did the best you could.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you've been through the steps multiple times, I would imagine. Yeah, me
Multiple. Yeah.
too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. It's like one of those, it's like you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be in shape forever, right? And so, and every time, you do the steps over again, it's like you're a different person because every time you do them, it changes you and you learn and you grow and you have more information and then life happens and you use your information against your life and pretty soon you need new information or you discover, we're always evolving and changing. So it's either we're progressing or regressing, right? So it's
Exactly.
important to sort of stay on top of that kind of thing. So you've stayed committed to the,
Well, I
being
host a meeting every day on Zoom. Because,
every day you host a meeting.
every day, every day.
Wow, that's
I actually
amazing.
have gotten other people to step in for me after like the 3-month mark of COVID. I was like, I actually started a meeting up in Wayne, Pennsylvania, where I raised my kids, because there was no meeting really close by at 7:45 in the morning, because that was like the best time for me, because I dropped the kids off at school. So I started a meeting in a church right in downtown where I live. And of course I started 2 days a week, and then somebody's like, wait, let's do it more. And so of course then, like every good alcoholic, it's now 7 days a week. So that is still going on, and that's called Morning Hope, and that's up in Philly. So that's still going on. And then I started a Morning Hope on Zoom, and that goes on. So, I'm still
super into service.
I am. And it's with 14 years, it doesn't, I don't have any, I just have today, it's just one day at a time.
Yeah. It's where ODAAT comes from, right? One day at a time.
Exactly. It's one day at a time. And it's like, there was a prayer that really got me through in the very beginning, because I mentioned that there was a lot of shame. I had a lot of shame. Lots of shame, lots of remorse, lots of bitterness. And there's this prayer that we read in Pennsylvania, and I'll paraphrase, like, yesterday's gone. There's no money in the world will bring back yesterday. It already happened. And tomorrow, the sun will either rise in splendor or behind a mask of clouds, but it will rise. And until it does, we have no stake in tomorrow. And all we have is today. And that is really, it's like really taking those baby steps of learning to live in the day. And hence, when Bizzy Living Sober was born, I want to say it was born like 3 years ago. It's always been about getting busy living sober in the days, right? So it's like, how do you get busy living sober in today? Because if we're focused so much on yesterday, right? The regret and remorse of yesterday and the fear of tomorrow. What is it like to sit with you've got a fence in between your legs. You're like, this is totally uncomfortable. I don't want to sit here.
Right.
But if you're right here and today, these gifts are just amazing, right? If you just live in the day, the present is the gift.
The present is the gift. I love that. As we sort of wrap up here, you've been so generous with your time. Do you have a weekly routine or a daily routine? Do you have like a morning routine that helps you to stay sober?
I do, and it's something, and it changes all the time. So I'm going to tell you, it's ever evolving. What it was like 14 years ago to what it is today is totally different, because I couldn't even meditate at the very beginning. And I remember they'd be like, you have to meditate, that's step 11. And you're like, okay, prayer meditation. Yeah, prayer meditation. You're like, meditation. I'm like, I'd sit there and meditate. I'd be like, okay, I've got to make dinner. Did somebody get picked up from school? Did the trash get taken out? Oh my God, that laundry's been in the washer for 3 days. I bet it really smells. Like your brain is just all that stuff. And I learned that unless you're dead, your brain will do that.
Right.
So today I wake up in the morning, I read some daily reflections. I meditate for about 15 minutes, and then I write in my journal. Then I go to a meeting. So I go to a meeting at it starts at 8:00. I normally open it up at about 7:45 to have some, we like to chat.
Chit chat, yeah.
We're not chatting in the parking lot. We're chatting on Zoom. And then I do that, and then I go exercise, and then I get on my day. And returning emails, putting this up. I play a lot of golf with my husband. I love that. And
nice.
I'm in Florida, so I go to the beach. I go swim in the ocean. I do all sorts of things.
Oh,
normally, I talk to a lot of alcoholics though every day. A lot. I have sponsees I help all the time, so I'm always working with that too.
And you do the podcast and stuff. Well, yeah, I will definitely leave links to your podcast in the show notes, and we'll leave it. I'm going to publish this on YouTube, so I'll leave links to your podcast there too.
And you get to tell everybody that you're going to come on my show
I'm going to be on yours.
Now I get to ask you all these same questions. Girl, you get to be in the hot seat.
I love it. I like talking about my damn self.
Exactly, right? It's going to be awesome.
Talking about me. You talk about me for a little while.
Right? I'm going to actually find out the date, because I saw it in here. And
I think it was October 6th. We'll record October 6th.
October 6th, which is the day after my 52nd birthday. You're coming on, and I can't wait it.
Woo-hoo! Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much. It's just such a pleasure to get to know you. And I'm going to try to publish this by your anniversary date.
That'll be awesome.
Be super fun.
Yay. I'm so excited. And we'll share it with all of our friends and listeners and everybody else. It'll be awesome.
That's right. Well, listen, you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Definitely. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.